So this is a video with more practice for factoring, and I am just going to do problems having to do with either the GCF or grouping. So for this video, I'm going to do all of these problems here. I'm going to factor them, as well as all of these problems that you see here. So this video specifically just continues extra practice exercises that accompany my review video on this same topic. So if you want to check out that review video, you can check the description for a link. By the way, you can get a free PDF version of all of these problems with an answer key at divideandconquermath.com. Just go to the review section. So here are the problems again. You can pause if you maybe want to try them yourself, if you are like using this to actually practice and study. But you know me, I am just going to plow right through all of these. So I'm going to start with 5x squared plus 10x plus 15. So for this one, the GCF, the only thing that these have in common are a 5. So I can divide 5 into everything. So this will become x squared plus 2x plus 3. So I just divide each one of these by 5. They don't all have an x in them, so I can't factor any x factors out. Okay, so moving on to the next problem. So I've got 6x to the 4th y to the 3rd minus 8x squared y to the 5th plus 12x to the 5th y to the 4th. Now, the number that divides 6, 8, and 12 at the same time is going to be 2. And then I notice that each term has an x and a y in it, so I can factor an x and a y out. Now, we talked about in the review video that, like, what do you factor out? It's going to be the variable with the lowest exponent. So among the x's, x squared is the lowest exponent, so I'm going to factor out x squared. And then among the y's, I've got y cubed, y to the 5th, and y to the 4th, so y cubed is the smallest exponent. So ultimately, I'm going to factor 2x squared, y cubed out of each one of these. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then I've got x to the 4th. I'm removing x squared, so that leaves me with just x squared. And then the y cubes will end up dropping out. 8 divided by 2 is 4. The x squareds drop out, and I'm left with just y squared. So remember, I've got y to the 5th. I'm taking out y to the 3rd, so what's left over? Y squared. And then for this last one, so this will be plus 6x to the 3rd y. Okay, now for C here, so I've got 5xy minus 7z. So just because you're told to factor doesn't mean that you can always factor. So you do want to kind of stay on your toes here. So in looking at this, 5 and 7 definitely don't have anything that's divisible by both. This has an xy and this has a z. So this can't be factored. Sometimes the phrase that we use for that is prime. So it probably just depends on the context that you're in as to which way you want to describe that. So I'll just tell you both. Okay, so moving on to D here. So now I've got 28x to the 5th, y to the 3rd, z to the 5th, minus 14x to the 4th, y to the 7th, z, plus 21x to the 7th, y to the 4th, z cubed. Now, 7 will divide all of these numbers, and then I notice that everything has an x, y, z in it. So now I just have to look for those lowest exponents. So this is going to be, let's see, x to the 4th is the lowest x exponent. Looks like y to the 3rd is the lowest y exponent, and z is the lowest z exponent. So now we can go ahead and do this. 28 divided by 7 is 4. And let's see, this will leave me with x, the y drops out, and this will leave me with z to the 4th. Oops. Up next we have 2. The x's will drop out, so this becomes y to the 4th. So I'm just left minus 2y to the 4th. And then plus 3, x to the 3rd, y, z squared. So let me double check that real quick. Yeah. Okay, so that is as good as that one gets. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, please consider hitting that like button or maybe even the subscribe button. It just helps encourage me to keep making free math content. Always love it when you guys leave me a comment either with suggestions or ideas or just telling me that you're using the video. I always appreciate that too. Okay, so continuing on, so now we're moving into more grouping type exercises. So for E here, so this is just to check that you know how to do grouping, and this is something that we talked about in the review video. So the thing that I notice here is I've got 2x minus 1 and 2x minus 1. So as long as those two things are the same, you can really factor out, you can think of this as factoring out that 2x minus 1. And the stuff that's left over, the 5 and the 7x, that just goes in its own set of parentheses. So like I said, we talked about that in length in the other video. So if you'd like to see a description of that, check out the other video. Okay, so now moving on to F here. So now what I want to do is now I want to actually just use olive grouping. So in these first two terms, so notice that this is 4 terms, right? And in these first two terms, I notice that they have a 3 in common. So this will be 3x squared plus 2. And then in the second two terms, they have a 2x in common. So this becomes 2 plus x squared. Now, this says x squared plus 2, this says 2 plus x squared, but I know that these two things are equivalent. So then I can rewrite this and factor this as 3 plus 2x and x squared plus 2. Doesn't matter if you wanted this to be 2 plus x squared, doesn't matter. It just needs to have those two terms in the parentheses. Okay, so let's keep going with our grouping fun. So now I've got x to the 4th minus 2x cubed plus 6x minus 12. So out of the first two terms, I will factor out an x cubed so that I'm left with x minus 2. And out of the second two terms, I will factor out a 6 so that once again I'm left with x minus 2. So they've got x minus 2 and x minus 2. So now I can rewrite this as x cubed plus 6 times x minus 2. Okay, so now moving on to h here. So I have x squared plus 4x plus 3xy plus 12y. So in the first two terms, I notice that I can factor out an x so that I'm left with x plus 4. And out of the second two terms, it looks like I can factor out a 3y. So once again, I'm left with x plus 4. And this will become x plus 3y times x plus 4. Okay, so now I've got 20x squared plus 30x minus 2xy minus 3y. So just be careful with the minus signs here. So for the first problem, let's see, it looks like I can factor out 10x so that this becomes 2x plus 3. And then out of the second two terms, it looks like I'll just factor out a negative y. Now when you factor out the negative y, you are going to turn both of these into positive terms, right? And so then this will factor 10x minus y and 2x plus 3. Okay, and finally for this last one, so I've got negative 15x squared y squared minus 30x squared y plus 5x plus 10y. So out of the first two terms, let's see, it looks like I can factor out minus 15x squared y, so that this will be 2y plus 3, right? So I factored out a minus 15, so both of these have to become positive. And then, sorry, this should have been, what am I doing? This should have been y plus 2. My bad, sorry. And then out of the second two terms, it looks like I'm going to factor out a 5. So this becomes 5 times x plus y. Okay. And so this is another one of those problems where this is kind of an interesting thing just to notice. So in this particular case, it looks like at the moment we can't factor this. Now, I didn't talk about this in the other video, but I do just want to kind of actually run you through, like there is another check that you can make real quick just to make sure that this doesn't factor. Because every once in a while when you're grouping, you might set this up and it might just not be in the right order for you to use grouping. So one other thing that you can do is you can re-scramble the terms. So I'll show you what I mean. So I have now put, should be minus 5x. Okay. So I put the minus 15x squared y squared and the 5x together, the negative 30x squared y and the 10y together. So one thing I recommend is if your grouping doesn't work out, just try it one more way and sometimes it will work. So let's see if this works this time. So in this case now I can factor out 5x. That's going to leave me with negative 3xy squared plus 1. And then in the second set of terms, let's see, I will factor out, why don't we factor out, how about negative 10y? So let's see, what does that leave me with? So if I leave out negative 10y, that is going to leave me with 3x squared plus 1. Or not plus 1, minus 1, because the signs have to flip. Okay, and so you can see here, right, so this actually still doesn't work out. right? These are still not the same. So once again, so just want to throw out these examples here. So this one can't be factored. So it would be prime again. Okay, so that is going to be it for this video. So my review series, by the way, has many other topics in it. Each topic includes a refresher video with practice problems, which you're watching right now. So if you want to check out more quick review series like this, go to divideandconquermath.com, go to the review section. You can find everything there available for free. Okay, so I have another video actually on just trinomials, so I am going to jump over to that one. Hope to see you there. Bye!